from the rumor capital of the world, New York, rumors swirling that the Browns might be trying to trade Odell Beckham Jr., which they have denied several times, for Jamal Adams, another guy, with a contract situation that keeps threatening to hold out. The interesting thing is I don't think the Browns are a place that Jamal Adams really has identified as one that he wants to go to, but the thought behind it, get another guy that makes plays, not necessarily on the front half, but on the back half of that defense. He's certainly young, talented young safety.
So yeah, and here's a specific trade that I don't know that I would make this one. I really like Jamal Adams. I think he makes that back end of your defense really good. But you also have to look at what you're giving up. And as tough as it was for Odell Beckham last year, he still went over 1,000 yards. And if you take him off this roster, you've got to look at this receiving core and try and figure out, okay, who's your number one guy? Jarvis Landry is a really good receiver. Do you want him to be your number one receiver? He's not really, a speedster. He's not a deep threat. He's a guy that works underneath, kind of works on the edges a little bit. That's where he makes all of his money. You still need a guy like an Odell Beckham who can get down the field, who can make big plays. And if you take him off the roster, for as tough as last year was, you take him off this roster, you don't really have any other receivers on this roster that can do anything close to what he does.
Yeah, and there's a reason trade rumors teams keep floating the idea of trading for Odell Beckham. Now, having said that, look at where Kevin Stefanski came from, the Vikings. They had Adam Thielen, they had Stephon Diggs. You get to a point where you've outpriced what you can pay receivers when you want to run the ball and have two tight ends. And there's going to come a time when you have to pay Baker Mayfield and you have to pay Myles Garrett and you have to pay Nick Chubb and you have to pay some of these guys, where those two receivers might just be too expensive for you to afford together.
Yeah, eventually this is going to come to a head. You've got $30 million invested in Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry, and you can't have that. Like you said, they've got so many big extensions coming up, frankly, more important positions. But I still think for this year especially, in a year when you have to get an evaluation on Baker Mayfield, to take weapons away from him, they invested in this offensive line to try and get a good evaluation on him. I don't think you can take weapons away from him, especially one the caliber of Beckham, if you want to try and get a fair evaluation of what he can do in year 3.
Yeah, and again, this is not to say that Odell Beckham is not worth it. It's just when you put the pieces together with how the Browns want to build this and how this offense and defense is going to run and the pieces that you have there, a lot of money for wide receivers that just doesn't add up to the bottom, to the whole of what you can pay.
Right. It's roster building. You've got to have 53 guys. You've got to work under a salary cap, and you've got to give up in some positions to pay other positions. The good news for the Browns, though, is outside of Myles Garrett, if they get something done with him this summer, they still have a little bit of time before they've really got to start paying guys. So they can get away for now with paying those two receivers big-time money, but eventually they're going to have to make some decisions, and it could be decisions they have to make next offseason.
And the good news is, you're making decisions because you have talent on the roster. That's something that this franchise, quite frankly, that's a good problem to have. Haven't had that in a while.
Yeah, Myles Garrett was, I believe, their first homegrown fifth-year option they picked up since Phil Taylor. So it had been a while. They picked up Demarius Randall's after they traded for him, but Garrett was the first homegrown guy. So it just tells you they haven't had a lot of talent, especially if they picked high in the draft. They felt like keeping around.